Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michael Branco, CEO of FireMinds. Everybody can hear me okay? Just respond in the chat group. Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today for our Cloud Workspace webinar. Today, I'm joined by two others from the FireMinds team. Firstly, Pedro Florentino, who's our Director of Product Management. Pedro is responsible for leading our product strategy and market development. He works closely with our strategic vendors and channel partners, making sure that we are offering the right solutions to our customers when it comes to cloud, managed services, and software development. And then also joining us is Trevor, who is our head of technology, and he's sitting in our Halifax office right now. And he heads up technology and customer care for all of our data centers, cloud solutions, help desk, and managed services. I've actually worked for Trevor for almost, I think, 8 or 9 years now. And, and he also manages the team both in Halifax and Bermuda for our clients. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Branco. I'm founder and CEO of FireMinds. FireMinds is a company that I started 8 years ago. We originally started as a software development company and evolved over the years into adding cloud offerings as well. Fast forward to 2018, we're now 40 people strong. We're based in Bermuda. We have offices in Halifax, Miami, and we service mainly the financial services and reinsurance market in Bermuda. But in September of 2017, we took on a 8-figure investment from AT&I, who are a holding company, NASDAQ listed in Boston, who own Logic Communications in Cayman, ComNet, which is in Nevada and Colorado, GTT, which is in Guyana and is the national telecom there, OneCom, which is the largest telecom provider here in Bermuda, and Via, who is one of our telecom companies in the US Virgin Islands. As a predominantly telecom group, we are now offering via FireMinds to each of these sister companies our enterprise software and enterprise cloud solutions. And today we're also joined by some of those subsidiaries who are on the line with us. The nice thing about the recent expansion that FireMinds has had is, as in essence, a billion-dollar NASDAQ group, we are able to bring these solutions to a wider market. We've enjoyed successes in Bermuda with a sophisticated client base, but now we are operating within South Florida and within the Latin America Caribbean region as well, mainly working with mid-sized corporate and enterprise size customers. So today, what we want to cover is the Cloud Workspace solution that we provide to our customers. This has been a product that we've put to market over the last 2 years. It bolts in with our managed services offering. And what I will do is hand the microphone over to Pedro, who will walk us through what we're covering, and then I'll jump back in a little later when we talk about our data centers and our SD-WAN solutions.
Thank you, Michael. Can everyone on the bridge hear me? I hope you can. I was able to hear Michael. I'll take that as a yes, since I just received confirmation that everyone can hear me. So what we want to talk about today and the agenda is the definition of a cloud workspace, the top 4 business drivers of the cloud workspace, those being agility. Agility is basically the ability to scale on demand, flexibility for your workforce, anywhere, anytime access to desktops and applications, the cost savings that are realized by a company that adapts to cloud workspace, and then the security behind the cloud workspace. Also, how customers can leverage the FireMinds and Azure cloud data centers to pretty much run their business and their desktops, applications, cloud computing, etc. Then we're going to have a demo. Trevor is going to give us a demo of and give you guys a visual on how the cloud workspace works. So the definition of a cloud workspace, there's a lot of ways to define this, but the fact of the matter is that the definition has evolved. In the past, you may have heard about desktop as a service. The term cloud workspace and desktop as a service has been used interchangeably to describe a virtual desktop instance. But the fact of the matter is that the cloud workspace is the next step in the evolution of cloud computing. It is more than just managing a desktop in the cloud. It's about bringing all of the applications, all of the services that are required for you to run your business in the single pane in a centralized location to really oversee everything that's associated with your customer, your users, having access to the applications, being able to work from anywhere, any location they want, simplifying the delivery. What I mean by simplifying the delivery is being able to spin up a desktop when you grow as a business. So if today I have 50 employees and tomorrow I bring on 5 new employees, I can quickly bring those employees online through the simple management of a cloud workspace. It's also the ability to secure your data, having your data not get compromised because it's sitting on a laptop somewhere on a user's device. And it's also providing about that, the flexibility for someone to be, for example, myself, I work out of my home office in Miami when I'm not in our shared workspace office at WeWorks in Coral Gables. I can access all of my applications through the cloud workspace. I'm going to dive in a little deeper into each one of these benefits, if you will, of the cloud workspace in the subsequent slides. There are 4 business drivers for adapting the cloud workspace. That is the agility, and that's basically the ability to scale on demand, as I mentioned earlier, is to be able to bring on board a user or a contractor, an employee. You can define it any way you want on demand. Then there's the flexibility. That's the ability to work via any device and from any location in the world. Then there's the cost reduction aspect of the cloud workspace. And the security aspect, as I mentioned, is protecting the corporate data, is having and delegating the certain rights to certain users on what they can and cannot access, websites, social media, business applications, etc. I'm going to dive a little deeper into each one of these in each one of the slides going forward. So just to give you guys a holistic view of all the features and functionalities and what you get when you invest in a cloud workspace. So agility. Nowadays, everything seems to be on demand when you want it, scale when you need it, only pay for what you use. It's no longer a best practice to set up on-premise, a workstation, install applications on a local machine, frequently patch, remediate against viruses, and the continuous management of a perpetual license. For example, if I'm an IT manager and I have to, every time that we grow or reduce workforce, have to deploy that desktop in a cubicle, set up the connectivity, set up the user rights, all of the maintenance that's required when you bring on a new employee or reduce your head count, it's overhead. We want to be able to scale down as we need it. The modern approach to IT management and service delivery is to scale on demand with minimal efforts. The cloud workspace offers scalability. So you're basically paying for your users on licenses and not perpetual. Your subscription licenses are on a monthly recurring fee. We have monthly and yearly subscription and also long-term subscription. So you're paying for what you use when you need it. No longer it's about buying a perpetual license and not getting the updates that are required to protect your services. It's now about a subscription-based service. You're frequently being updated as there are vulnerabilities introduced into the applications. It's also the desktop and the environments that you need. It's patching these services to make sure that you are not being compromised. It's protecting about your applications and your desktops from ransomware. You want to be able to scale. For example, I'll give you an example of a hospital environment where you don't necessarily need a license, or a doctor needs to access their desktop on that particular workstation to get access to X-rays, etc. If I am a doctor, I can use a centralized workstation to be able to access remotely or from within the hospital the X-rays that you were just performed on a patient. The ability to a nurse also leverage the same workstation. They don't no longer have to access that application that's sitting on the desktop. They log in, they have access to any radiology software, any X-rays that were created when the patient came in. Also, from another perspective, is the call center. If I am a call center agent, I don't necessarily have to go and sit in the call center. I can now access all of the services that are required to take in those support calls that are coming into my company. Seasonal workers, for example, if I am a company that scales according to demand based on the season of the year, I can bring on new workstations to meet the demand and the growth. And I'm going to give you an example of something that happened a couple of years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago with Citrix. I previously used to manage the licensing team at Citrix, and we saw a spike in license uses from Bank of America. In the Northeast, they have a call center, and that call center is staffed by folks that will come into the office, log in, and serve the customers. There was a snowstorm called a nor'easter in the United States, and when a nor'easter comes in, it pretty much hampers the ability for anyone to get to work, as transportation comes to a standstill and workers cannot get to their offices. Bank of America was able to quickly scale up on demand, bring on new desktops for all those workers who could not come into the office, access these applications and these services from their home office. That's an example of on-demand delivery with desktop as a service, also known as the Workspace Cloud. Contractors, for example, you don't want to give contractors the same rights, the same access to the services that your employees use or anyone in your company uses. With a Workspace, you can actually set up a contractor desktop and provide them only access to what they need. So from on-demand perspective, Workspaces allow you to quickly scale down, manage your rights, restrictions, and user access as needed. Mentioned also flexibility. Accessing your workspace, you can do it from anywhere, right? You can be at home, you can be across the globe and still access it from your mobile device, your laptop, or you can be in the office and access your applications and services. A few years ago, there was a survey done by Nicholas Bloom, who was a professor of economics at Stanford University. He teamed up with a company called Ctrip in China, China's largest travel agency, to test some ideas about telecommuting. So over 9 months, what they did is they used a sample size of approximately 250 workers who volunteered for the experiment. Half were randomly choosing to work at home and half were used to work in the office. At the end of the experiment, employers found that the home-based office employees were more productive when they actually worked from home by 9.5%. They actually worked longer hours versus the employees that worked in the office. So from a productivity standpoint, working remote and having access to these applications has shown that through research that employees are actually more productive when they have the flexibility. 37% of US workers today telecommute. They at least 2 days a month telecommute from their office, from their home office or somewhere else. 64 of Americans use their personal devices for work. So when we talk about the flexibility, we talk about having access to what's called bring your own device. Bring your own device will allow you to have your personal access to your application and also have your business critical applications accessible by that same device. I'm going to get into that a little more when we talk about some cost savings. But bring your own device will also allow you to browse the social network when you're not at work or doing work from home, and log into your desktop to access applications, websites, etc., that are only limited by what your company allows you as a worker. 79% of employees say that remote access to business apps outside working hours is critical, right? So I want to be able to personally, maybe Google search properties, or maybe go on Facebook and communicate with my friends. But I also want to use that device to travel, right? If I am going out of town and I'm going to be able to work from a separate location, I don't want to carry two devices. I want to be able to carry that single device so I can work, and I can also have my personal life with that same device. So having the flexibility to work from anywhere in the world is very, very important, especially when you're dealing with millennials. Millennials these days are very easily turned off by companies that do not provide them workplace product flexibility. And that is one of the key drivers why companies are adapting the Workspace cloud. As I mentioned earlier, cost savings is huge, right? And by the way, when it comes to agility, flexibility, cost savings, security, none of these services or reasons why customers implement the service are in order of sequence or priority. Some companies have different reasons to adapt the cloud workspace. Savings is also obviously a big one. With cloud workspaces, there is no capital outlay, so you're not investing in the hardware, you're not investing in the license, and your IT overhead, such as setting up racks, server deployment, power consumption, or real estate expansion costs to meet a growing demand. You can scale up on demand without having to incur these costs. Additionally, the lifespan of the existing desktops and laptops are extended. I don't necessarily have to have the latest and greatest laptop with the fastest processing power. I can use a laptop from 5 or 6 or 7 years ago that allows me to access these applications, these desktops, all of the services that I need to do my work without having a new device. So from a cost saving standpoint, it makes sense. You're reducing your capital expenditure. You're also consolidating your IT infrastructure because you no longer have those costs associated with servers and racks, etc. And from a real estate perspective is this physical space. The great thing about the cloud workspace is that you can work from anywhere. There are a lot of companies popping up. I mentioned earlier a company called WeWorks. In the United States, in my Miami office, we have a shared physical workspace where we go in and we already have access to internet. We have a physical workspace. We have offices. We have personal office. We have conference rooms, etc. And we are able to do our work remotely, accessing all of the service that we want from that physical location. So when you think about it in a cost savings perspective, desktops can be accessed from anywhere. And if your employees need to get together in a location that's close proximity to all your workers, or be able to build business with other companies in that shared workspace, you have that social environment for your employees to go to work and being able to access all your services and be productive. From a power and electricity standpoint, you have to think about when you grow as a business and you expand, you have costs. You have to now set up cubicles. You have to bring power to each one of those cubicles. If you're fastly growing, you have to also maybe grow your location. With workspace services, you don't have to, right? You can have a shared workspace where maybe Michael comes in certain days of the week, Pedro comes in certain days of the week, and have access to all your services internally in your physical location. But when the employee is not at that physical location, they can still work and be productive from anywhere else in the world. One of the top drivers also is security, right? One of the great things about the cloud workspace is that your applications and services do not sit on the local device. Your data does not sit on the local device. If I'm an employee and I download, for example, a file with all of our pricing, our costs, information about our customers, and I have that on my local device, I lose that device, or someone steals that device, or someone compromises that device. Now I'm exposing my corporate data to someone else out there. That data or access to my network, because they've downloaded a virus to my local device, can compromise the company. They can basically get access to our servers. They can shut down our service, and in order to bring up that service, we would have to pay a fee, ransomware. Right? It happens a lot. It happens a lot with small, medium-sized businesses, and it's something that it's a huge problem for companies. With Workspace services, those applications, that data does not sit on the device. In order to access that data, you have to log into a two-factor authentication into the Workspace. I have a username and password that I have to access my operating system in, whether it's a Windows or Apple. Then I have to authenticate using two-factor authentication with a temporary token ID that's provided to me as I log in to the virtual environment with the Workspace, desktop, and applications sit. So at that point, I don't necessarily have the right to access the data or download the data onto my local device unless I am given access to do so by an administrator. I don't have access to certain websites that may have malware. If I click a link in an email and I access that link, I can download a virus into my local device. But when I'm actually accessing it through a virtual desktop, that sits, those rights and access to those applications and websites can only be can be restricted by the administrator or the service provider who's managing your service. Another, as I mentioned before, is the endpoint security. You have limited websites. Also, you can on the endpoint, you can install software to limit the access to certain sites from your endpoint and also on your virtual environment. Michael, Trevor, anything you want to add pertaining to security?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as everyone knows, cybersecurity has always been an important thing to track, but recently it really is becoming highlighted as we see more and more attacks on large companies, and also seeing more and more incidents of ransomware showing up in important places like hospitals and large corporations. So what we've found with our virtual desktop environment that we have our customers on, that using two-factor authentication like RSA tokens, we are able to put a perimeter and better protection around our customers' data assets and provide them that protection. Thus far, we have not had any incidents within any of our cloud environments with things like ransomware. We've had attempted attacks against our firewalls, but those have been thwarted by our IDS and IPS systems. And we're seeing more and more customers move towards a virtual desktop for security reasons. That is becoming one of the main drivers these days.
Great, thank you, Michael.
So one thing that we have learned, within our team, many of us have been working and building and providing cloud environments since 2006. And when we first started doing cloud, it was basically infrastructure as a service. It was a virtual server sitting in a data center, and then connectivity from that back to the customer's premises, either through what's called a VPN tunnel or through a direct link. Over time, products like Citrix or WorkSpot have been deployed to allow access to these cloud environments via virtual desktop. And as Pedro had highlighted, that was mainly driven by bring your own device. As more and more of us have our own computers, accessing corporate assets through virtual desktop is the most efficient way. But what that also brings with it is management of the experience and the network in between the cloud environment and wherever the customer is sitting. And I always say to people that virtual desktops are like Netflix for your company. They are streaming the virtual desktop to wherever you're accessing that, be it at home, in the office, on the road, and you are subject to network conditions in between the cloud environment and wherever you are. So if you have a bad Wi-Fi connection at your house or in the hotel that you're working from, then that may degrade your experience with the virtual desktop environment. So there's a couple different ways that we've solved that, because everything that we're doing within FireMinds is about user experience, be it the virtual desktop environment or when you call into our call center. And so for our customers who sit on net, in Bermuda on OneCom or on network with our customers in Cayman and on Logic and our other subsidiaries, we're able to provide a direct connection into your cloud environment and manage that network so that you have a good virtual desktop experience. Then we have some customers who are based around the world, and we have to deploy an SD-WAN solution. So that's a software-defined network that adapts and optimizes conditions so that when you're accessing the virtual desktop environments within FireMinds, it is finding, in essence, the most efficient route back to our data centers, reducing the latency where it can, and managing adverse network conditions so that your virtual desktop doesn't go blurry, you don't have disconnects, and it's a good user experience. We've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. We have a few global clients who have offices from Boston to Scotland, all the way out to Asia Pacific, and they're using our SD-WAN solution to get back to our data centers in Bermuda and Cayman. What we're also doing, as we add more data centers into our offering, we are extending that network fabric of SD-WAN to all of those other data centers and interconnecting them as well. And what it allows us to do is accelerate data between the data centers that we control, which means if we have a customer who's hosted primarily out of our Bermuda data center, and for whatever reason, be it a hurricane or some sort of issue, we can fail over to our Halifax data center so that the customer can automatically switch over to that data center, and all the data should be replicated from Bermuda to Halifax so they can pick up where they left off. Now, with cloud, we have two solutions, and we have those data centers that we either own, like we do in Bermuda. We actually own our own physical data center. In Halifax, we are at a landing station at the Hibernia facility where we have our own cage and our own racks and cloud servers there. The reason why we've done that, most of you are coming from the Caribbean region, and most of you have lawyers or auditors who insist that your data must be sitting in one of the offshore jurisdictions, be it within your region or within our Bermuda or Canada data center. So many of our financial services clients are highly driven by data residency concerns, and that's why we have our own data centers and clusters of servers to provide these virtual desktop environments for you. What we've also done, again, highlighting how important security is becoming to our customers, we will be making an official announcement in the coming weeks, but we have completed what's called a SOC 2 certification. And basically, one of the big four audit firms has spent the last 6 months going through all of our data center security, availability, systems, IT operations, and ensuring that we are running our cloud operations to the best standards. And so for our customers as well, as they're regulated regulators put controls on them, be it a central bank, in financial services, then they can now look to our SOC 2 certification, which confirms that we're running our data centers in cloud to a high standard. So for those customers who do not necessarily have to leverage our data centers, we then use the Microsoft Azure data centers. Last count, there are 43 data centers globally. We run a number of global applications for various customers out of these data centers. And we can also position where those applications are running based on the customer's needs. So for example, if we have a client in Europe who has a high volume web application, then we will host that out of Ireland, the UK, the Netherlands, one of the Azure data centers within the Euro region. Equally, we're running some customers from our US data centers in Virginia. And then we also have customers who are running out of Halifax and Toronto data centers in the Microsoft Azure suite. And so for our virtual desktops, our cloud workspaces, we can also run from Azure and tie them into our SD-WAN so that you can interop between our data centers and the Azure data centers as if they are one resource. And that is something that we've been doing for a couple of years now. And we have quite a few customers who are leveraging this wide footprint of data centers that we are hooked into. So I'll hand it over to Trevor, who's our head of technology.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right. So when it comes to deploying your desktop as a service, we have two deployment options. One is the first one is a shared desktop. Now, the concept of a shared desktop is essentially going back, if you go back a few years, companies would make use of Microsoft's terminal services. Now, Citrix took this to another level by releasing their Zen app product. Now, with this, they were able to more efficiently manage everyone's sessions. So you have multiple users all sharing the same server and same set of resources. And as Pedro was saying, these are accessible via any desktop, laptop, or phone. Now, on this shared server, which is dedicated to your company, we install all your line of business applications and also set up your a file share on there for you. Now, this setup is typically ideal for standard users and applications that don't require any dedicated resources, meaning they're not an AutoCAD software that requires a large amount of graphics resources and memory, to produce your large designs. These are applications more like QuickBooks, your Office 365, and Microsoft Office stack. And also for companies who use a large amount of software as a services, whether that's Salesforce, SAP, Oracle services. These, because they all run within the browser and they're all a service, you don't have, to dedicate a large amount of memory per user. And our second option is dedicated desktops. And in this case, each user has a dedicated virtual desktop. So when they log in, they get a desktop that is completely dedicated to them. All the resources, memory, CPU is dedicated to their applications that they're running within their desktop. So this is delivered via Citrix Zen Desktop. And as Michael was saying, these applications can be hosted in any of our data centers or any of the Azure data centers as well. Now with the desktops, we have two options. So initially when we build out your desktop, we create a master image that will be used to deploy your desktops. On this, we'll install any of your line of business applications that you need, and as well as Office 365 and any additional services you may need installed on those desktops. Now, there's two modes that we can run these desktops in. There's persistent and non-persistent desktops. So the difference between these is a persistent desktop is a desktop that's dedicated to a user, and any changes made by the user, whether that's application installs, data saved on the local desktop, are saved between logins. So when you log in, if you log in one day and you install a new application or a client for accessing another service that you use, when you log in next time to your desktop, that will still be there for you to use. If you save data on the local drive, which we don't recommend, and we put in other locations for you to save so you don't do this, but if you do choose to save data on the local desktop drive, that data will also be there for you the next time you log in. With a non-persistent desktop, what we do is that initial image that we create with you when we're deploying your desktop, that is used as the master image. And based on that master image, we deploy a pool of desktops that your users will use. So if you have, and this can be very useful in situations where you may have 10 or 15 users, but they're spread across the globe, so they're not working all at the same time. So say you have 15 users, but 5 of them are in a different time zone working complete opposite hours. You can have, your pool of 15 desktops and only power up certain ones when you have certain ones powered on depending on the time of day. When each user logs in, they'll get a desktop from this pool. It will have all the applications that we've installed on the image, their shared storage, everything like that will be available to them. But the difference with this is that if during that session a user installs, say a VPN client to access, Oracle or something along that lines, when they log back in the next time, as soon as they log off of that desktop will be rebooted and brought back to that master image. So this is particularly useful for us and for our clients. It adds to the security standards so that if a user goes and does download a virus and it's something that antivirus vendors haven't seen yet, or if they download and install one of those free scan your registry, or we've detected problems with your computer, so say we can simply log the user off, reboot that desktop, and it is back to the image in the same way it was when they logged in. We don't have to worry about taking that desktop offline, doing a cleanup, deploying a new one. We simply reboot and move that back to the master image. Now, these desktops, unlike the shared desktop, are ideal for power users or applications that may require a large amount of dedicated resources, because we can size, we can create either different images based on user type and the amount of memory, so that if they do have an application such as AutoCAD, for example, we can create a pool of desktops that have virtual graphics cards, to give them dedicated graphic memory, and then if they have a large requirement for memory for that as well, we can do that and have that pool just for, say, 3 users, and everyone else gets a shared desktop. So we can combine both deployment options into one solution, or go with one or the other.
Great. So at this point, we want to give a visual on exactly how a cloud workspace works, or what it looks like, just to give you guys some insight into this. Trevor, I'm going to hand over the access for you to log in and show your desktops for this particular session of the demonstration. So you should be able to now control, correct?
I believe so. There we go. All right, so for us, right now what we're going to demo is our shared platform right now. Now, depending on your company's needs, your company's size, we'll either, if required, if you have to have a completely separate environment from your for business needs, if you can't be on our shared environment, the URL will change, but the look and feel will still be the same. It's still going to be Citrix. It's just going to be dedicated to your company, and it'll, instead of desktop.azure.bm, it'll be desktop.yourcompany.com. So when we get to the website here, so one thing we have to do before, and the website will detect it if it's not installed, is because we're using Citrix, or if we're using another product that we use called Workspace, the user installs a local client onto their desktop, and that is the only piece of software that is required to access our cloud. And basically, that just facilitates the communication between the local desktop and Citrix. So if we log in here just with a demo account, so as you can see here, I have two password boxes. So the first password box is my regular Windows username and password. This password 2 box this is where the two-factor authentication comes in. So with the two-factor authentication, you get a soft token similar, to RSA that you set up on preferably your mobile device so you can take it with you. Or if you're always sitting at the same computer, you can install it locally, but on the computer, but preferred install is on your mobile device. And it gives you two options for logging in depending on what your situation is. So the first is you provide, when you first set up your soft token, you create a PIN, and that PIN can be 4 to 8 digits. Then the soft token on the phone will generate a one-time password. This one-time password is 8 digits, and you put this password in addition to your PIN. The other option we also have with the two-factor authentication is to actually set up a push notification. So on your Android or your Apple device, you can set your two-factor authentication up to basically once you try to log in, it will send a notification to your phone, and it'll pop up on your phone saying, you're trying to log in from this location at this time. Do you approve or decline it? And basically it comes up on your phone, you hit approve or decline, and it will send the communication back to our two-factor cloud to allow you to log in. Now, in this case, because this is a demo account, I'll log in with the PIN and password. So once we log in, we get the Citrix storefront, which would show all the desktops that are available. So as you can see, this user only has one desktop assigned to them, and it actually started auto-log me in because I only have the one desktop. And it's already logged me into my virtual environment here. So from here, we can actually, this can be made full screen. This can span over multiple monitors if you have it. So you can get all the advantages of working with, if you have 2 monitors on your desk, you can expand it out to just one screen, or you can expand it out to use both and get the same benefits as working with multiple screens on on your local device. So as you can see here, this looks just like your regular Windows desktop. So we can open up a web browser. Browse the web, and on here you can see we have Microsoft Office installed. So if we open up Word here, I have to log in with another account, but this account doesn't have a license assigned to it for Office, so that's why Office isn't working. But essentially, from here, we would then install any of your line of business applications, whether that be QuickBooks. You can use your web applications from here. And I have the option here that I can disconnect this, close it out, and when I go back in, so say you're sitting at the office and you connect to your virtual desktop, you're going home for the evening and you have a document you're going to work on, you can leave that desktop up and running and come back and connect to it again later and be back in the same state you were in. And when we're done, we sign out and we free up resources on the server for another user.
Great. Thank you very much, Trevor.
No problem.
So what we're going to do now is open it up to questions, just so we know which mic to unmute. If you want to go ahead and type in your question in the chat group, just put it to everyone. Then we'll go ahead and do a series of questions for the next 10 minutes. Don't be shy. While you're thinking of questions, a few things to highlight. Pedro had touched on it earlier. There are different use cases for virtual desktops, and we've seen a few different ones across our existing customer base. So for example, we have some trading companies who are hosted fully within our cloud, and they're using dedicated desktops. And the reason they do that is because they need to guarantee the resources they need to execute trades, use applications like Bloomberg Anywhere, and not have to be in a shared environment. At the other end of the spectrum, we have, let's say, medical offices who will utilize the shared platform because as doctors and nurses roam around within a clinic, they may go from room to room and log into the medical applications as they see each patient. They consult with the patient, work on the system, log back off, or just disconnect. And then at that point, those resources are less on the server, and then they work on, in essence, a shared basis. That tends to be more cost effective for the customer as well, because as we do shared environments, we are basically trying to anticipate that what the average number of users will be in that environment. And then if it peaks, users will see that things may slow down because they're all sharing a particular server. And then going back to the other end of the spectrum with the dedicated desktops, you have guaranteed performance, 4 CPUs, 16 gig of RAM per virtual desktop, and you won't be affected by other users on the platform. But because we're reserving more cloud resources, more compute, more RAM, then the cost tends to be a little bit higher for the dedicated desktop, but as a result, you also have guaranteed performance as well. And so typically we will sit down with our customers and go through the requirements gathering process to find the best fit for them, balancing performance against cost. Any questions?
Hey, Michael, thank you very much. One of the last points that I wanted to make, if there are no questions, is that for customers who are in different regions or are working closely with their channel representative, if you need more information or need to further engage for more discussions, we FireMinds are here to support our channel partners. So if you're in Cayman or down in Guyana, and you need further conversations to be had pertaining to the service, reach out to your reps in your local markets, and we'll be happy to assist if the reps in the local market with any information. They already have product information, etc. But if you need further deep dives and conversation on the technical aspects of the service, how we deliver the service, etc., we're there to support our channel partners. So make sure you reach out to those representatives in those markets.
Yeah, exactly. And also on top of that as well is, particularly if you're at a decision point on whether or not to move to cloud, usually if you're thinking about cloud, you're sitting on an on-premise solution, you have some servers stuffed away in a closet, and they're every 3 to 4 years, they're costing you a lot of money to buy new ones and support and maintain and power. Where when you move to a cloud solution such as FireMinds Workspace, you get a lot more consistent monthly bill. You know, you're paying per user per month, and it scales up and down as your demands change. So as you hit those decision points, definitely speak to the reps within the market. And if we're not in your market, just contact sales@fireminds.com, and we'd be happy to walk through the process with you. And in many of the cases, we will also help and do an audit of your existing IT, which will give us an idea of the cost savings that we can enable for you as you move to cloud, and also the migration effort that's required to move your data, your emails, and your line of business applications into a virtual desktop environment. And typically we will do these audits for free if you're becoming a cloud customer, and that can be very useful for you because it also gives us the opportunity to give you some areas where you can save money, and also how you could do things a little better with your technology environment. So my good friend Sean and Diana had a question. What are the user advantages of virtual over dedicated desktop for both staff and company as well? So in traditional IT models, if I go back 20 years when I worked on the help desk at Ernst & Young, we would have a desktop on everybody's desk, and typically that was costing us $2,000 to $3,000 per piece of equipment, and we'd get 3 years out of that. And then we'd have to go in essence maintain 150 different desktops, which would have different requirements depending on whether or not it was an audit junior all the way up to a partner. And that traditional IT model is heavy on capital expenditure. So you are buying batches of computers every 3 to 4 years, and is heavy on maintenance as well. Where when you move to a virtual desktop environment like ours, which is using Citrix, then you're centralizing all your compute power, and you then have the flexibility to share compute resources, redistribute them to users as they need, and you're also reducing the cost of having to maintain a big hardware footprint. Great. Any other questions? All right. right, Pedro, I don't know if you wanted to do a wrap up, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. And as I mentioned, contact your local representative. If you are a Bermuda customer, you can either work with your representatives at OneCom, who's one of our partners, or if you are already an existing FireMinds customer, you can contact us directly. We will be holding more webinars pertaining to other services in the coming months. So keep an eye out for these invitations, and we look forward to working with you and your participation in future educational webinars. Thanks again for your attendance.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.